Crest from Crest Migration with me, and today we're going to talk about FIRB. So, Sed, could you first off explain to us what is FIRB?
FIRB is the Foreign Investment Review Board, which is a federal government agency which is tasked with reviewing investments into land and companies in Australia.
And has COVID-19 affected the foreign investment rules?
It has. Earlier this year, probably at the peak of the first wave of coronavirus in Australia, in March, the government announced a new regime of legislation that will apply for foreign investment. That meant that the threshold was reduced to zero, so all foreign investment needed to be reviewed by the Foreign Investment Review Board.
And what are the timeframes and priorities?
The timeframes also got longer. Normally it would be about 45 days, but the statutory timeframes, which are the limits that the Foreign Investment Review Board must respond by, they have extended up to 6 months, which is quite long. However, the Foreign Investment Review Board advises recently that it's still approximately between about 45 days on average, or between 1 to 3 months.
Okay. And what's on the horizon for foreign investment in Australia?
Well, the new regime is in place until the 1st of January 2021. What the federal government is doing is looking at a new framework of legislation that will apply to foreign investment, and the introduction of a new national security test. That is about access to critical data for Australian defence and security. That hasn't been formulated or released yet. The government is working on that legislation probably as we speak. But the current framework is also prioritising critical sectors, and these are sectors like food production and distribution and agriculture, mining, engineering, telecoms, a few priority sectors that we need to make sure keep operating during the corona crisis.
And lastly, Sed, what's your advice for people looking to invest in Australia for the 491, the Small Business Owner Pathway in Queensland?
What I would suggest is start looking now for suitable businesses. As we've previously discussed, for the 491 Small Business Pathway, it must be a business operating in regional Queensland that is acquired for at least 100,000 and operated for 6 months to access the Queensland Small Business Owner Pathway and employ one person. So the timeframes around that, I would suggest to start looking now. Identify a target acquisition business company, apply for Foreign Investment Review Board now, have a clause in that contract that is subject to FIRB approval, just so you can get the ball rolling and so you're not constrained by the timeframes. Because the sooner you can get that 6 months process started, the sooner you can access the Small Business Owner Pathway. And there is there's a small allocation of 491 places that have been allocated just this week from the federal government to the states and territories. They are a limited number, but the fuller breadth of occupations and places are likely to become available through the budget process.
And with the limited numbers, obviously it's easier to get in quickly, start having a look and get that process underway so you don't miss out on the allocated numbers.
That's right, Sophie. It's much better to start looking now.
All right, so some quick timeframes to adhere to. Start having a look around, because I'm quite sure there's a few businesses, particularly around on the Gold Coast. Lots of good investment opportunity. Thanks for keeping us updated in relation to this very complex and ongoing changing issue set.
Thank you, Sophie. My pleasure.